Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Jordyn Elston. As of 5 o'clock tonight, Alabama's new stay-at-home order is now in effect.
This weekend, we are continuing to keep you updated on the spread of the coronavirus throughout the state.
Healthcare workers and first responders are under tremendous stress. In states like Georgia and Oklahoma, more states will loosen coronavirus-related restrictions this week.
A Montgomery resident and World War II veteran received a spectacular celebration for his 95th birthday today.
So
I'm
that's
born and
cold to
raised
me.
here, so I was freezing.
Oh, yeah.
Winter coat cold. We want to remind everyone that there is no indication that there is any danger of grocery stores running out of food or supplies. There is again no need to panic.
More businesses will be allowed to open next week. This comes after Governor Kay Ivey held a press conference a little while ago outlining changes to the new statewide health order. WSFA 12 News political reporter Lydia Nussbaum is joining us live. And Lydia, tell us about this new amended order.
Experience and something that really just stuck with so many people.
We begin with a look at the latest cases of the coronavirus in our state as loosened restrictions has put more focus on those numbers. Tonight, the number of cases has soared past 14,000. The number of coronavirus cases and deaths continue to grow tonight as the majority of states across the U.S. are allowing at least some of their businesses to reopen. The number of deaths from COVID-19 has now reached 88,000. And as NBC's Chris Pallone reports, business owners across the country are trying to figure out how to balance safety with service. As Alabama moves forward with its own plans to reopen, we continue to see more testing being done here. And as you'd expect, that led to more cases being reported daily. The total cases have risen to 11,674 out of more than 155,000 people tested. According to the ADPH, more than half of the test results have been received over the past 2 weeks. The number of deaths is now at 485. Truck drivers have emerged as some of the most essential workers during the coronavirus pandemic. But according to experts, the U.S. is seeing a shortage in drivers. And with many DMVs and training schools not operating at full capacity, the industry is struggling to get more drivers on the road. Tonight, reporter Ashley Bowerman shows us how drivers are getting certified from the comfort of their own home. An afternoon of protests gives way to another night. Officials in cities across the country are urging people to stop the violence that played out Friday night and has continued into tonight. That plea is especially important in the Twin Cities, where Minnesota's governor says protests have lost their initial focus. Here's a live look over Minneapolis, just one of many major cities that have seen violent protests and looting. A curfew is now in effect there. Daryl Forges is in Minneapolis with the latest. Today, we also saw demonstrations taking place here in Alabama, including the capital city of Montgomery, a city known for its deep historical significance when it comes to the civil rights movement. Here's a bird's eye view of the group that gathered on the steps of the state capitol earlier this evening. But that wasn't the only protest that took place in Montgomery today. Our reporter Ashley Bowerman continues our team coverage tonight. No arrests were made in the midst of today's protests, and protest leaders have strongly discouraged any sort of violence or looting of the city. Similar protests also taking place elsewhere across the state. A large group gathered at the fountain in downtown Opelika, holding signs and chanting. That demonstration was also a peaceful one. A large turnout of protesters in Birmingham. This is video from Kelly Ingram Park earlier today. Protesters plan to continue the rally in Hoover at the Galleria Mall. They say to fight for justice for E.J. Bradford, who was shot and killed by Hoover police in that mall in 2018. More protests taking place in Huntsville. More than 100 people gathered to let their voice be heard, but without the violence. All in all, today's protests across Alabama were largely peaceful. Turning now to Dale County. One person was killed this morning in a helicopter crash in Ozark. It happened on Buena Vista Drive inside the city limits and in a fairly dense residential area. This is just off Highway 231 and about a mile south of downtown Ozark. Details are limited right now, but law enforcement officials believe the helicopter may have experienced some type of mechanical failure before crashing. We also understand the aircraft was privately owned. The Federal Aviation Administration has now taken over the investigation into what happened. However, that investigation could be a lengthy process, and new information regarding the crash could take some time. Turning now to the coronavirus pandemic. Yesterday, Alabama surpassed 17,000 cases of the virus, and tonight those numbers are continuing to rise. Tonight there are now 17,359 cases statewide. 5,600 of those have come from the past 2 weeks alone, at least partially due to a huge surge in testing. As for Montgomery County, we now have 1,632 cases, and according to Mayor Reed, the city is averaging 64 new cases a day. 8 more deaths were reported across Alabama, adding up to 618 so far. New tonight, Tuskegee University has announced steps it will take to create a plan for reopening its campus this fall. School officials will do that by creating a group called the COVID-19 Recovery Management Center. University President Dr. Lily McNair says the goal is to announce a plan for the fall sometime in the coming weeks. New tonight from Covington County, the man who made history as Andalusia's first African-American council member has died. Lewis Carpenter died Wednesday at Mizell Memorial Hospital at the age of 92, according to the city. His life was defined by a long career of service. Carpenter made national news in 1984 when he was elected to the city council, serving 3 terms there. Among other roles, he also served as a member of the armed forces, spending 18 months in Korea. You can read more about his life and legacy in this story on WSFA.com. After being delayed earlier this week, history was made today in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Next at 10, a look back at the SpaceX launch and what it means for space exploration. And later tonight, how one small town is celebrating one of its own, whose name was called in this year's NFL draft. Stay with us.